G'day legends, I hope that you're really well. Now, I've been in the country over a month, in Israel, since that terrible massacre happened on the 7th of October. And this is going to be a bit of a closing video for what I've learnt and I guess how some of my opinions have shifted on what happened. So, on the 7th of October, the world woke up or had news coming through the day of the terrible massacre that happened when Hamas crossed the border only 600 metres behind me between Gaza and Israel. And in areas like this, there were hundreds into the thousands of people killed, massacred. Women, children, didn't matter. They were here to kill Jews. That is a fact. They were here to kill Jews, not to fight the army, but here to kill people. Now, following that, we saw a few-day operation to clear these terrorists out of these areas, and then we saw the now over a month-long bombing campaign of Gaza behind me that has killed in the thousands, claimed to be in the low 10,000 that have been killed there in a huge thousands of tons of bombs have been dropped. And I've sat here most nights and watched those bombs drop on those areas that have killed many civilians, many children, as well as are breaking up the Hamas network and the senior leaders there. Now, about a week ago from today, the ground operation by Israel has started. They have cut off the north and south and are tightening in on the north of Gaza. Now, from this, they're trying to get civilians out. They've dropped pamphlets, they've done text messages, they've done phone calls, and even still yesterday opening humanitarian corridors to try and get people out of the north to the south. That has been somewhat successful, but there's still a lot of civilians remain there. Now, why people remain? Well, there's a bunch of reasons, and I guess I can leave you guys to speculate on this. But I came here with very little knowledge of what is actually happening here and what the history of this is. And what I will say is, in a conflict like this that's been going on for seemingly forever, no one is completely innocent of, I guess, crimes that have happened. Israel has, bombed the shit out of an area now for over a month. Hamas crossed here and massacred civilians in their hundreds. It's horrible. What has happened is horrible, and this is why terrorist networks like this should never be able to get to that size. And people will claim freedom fighters. Freedom fighters do not come into areas like this and put babies in the oven or burn people alive. That is not what freedom fighters do. And through learning about this conflict and learning about the people and what's been happening here, I guess my opinion has really shifted on Hamas is nothing but a brutal terrorist organisation, and one that makes other terrorist organisations look mild in comparison. And that the free Palestine crowd, I'm 100% on the side of, if that was to free Palestinians of Hamas. That if that comes up, I will be waving a banner as well. That the Israel's mission here, now I'm not saying I agree with the way they're going about the mission, but that said, it's well beyond my pay grade of how to actually plan and operate a mission like this of those bombing strikes. But it is freeing the Palestinians of the Hamas network and freeing Israel of Hamas as well. It is more complex than I think any of us can really understand. I talk to many people and the complexity just grows and grows and grows. And of course, there's elements of ideology, there's elements, of course, of religion, there's elements of just pure hate and discrimination as well. And don't think that that doesn't go both ways of elements of that hate and the reinforced of some people that hate when they cross the border either way. And don't get me wrong, there are people around the world calling for and pushing genocide. These people who are normal, average people in the West waving banners, it is crazy to see what is happening here. Witnessing this firsthand, is insane to see. Now, in a perfect world, I would be able to go to that side as well and talk about it and be freedom of press there. But at the end of the day, Hamas have control over there at the moment, in areas at least that Israel isn't actively fighting. I'm not large enough media to go in there, and I've probably thrown a bit too much criticism in Israel's way to actually go in there as well. Even if I think my reporting was fair. But in the south, in the border, one, I can't cross the border, but secondly, I don't think Hamas would really like myself. So I think some of just the facts that I've learned is Hamas is nothing but a terrorist organisation, and a brutal, savage one who rocked up here to kill Jews. And the air campaign and some of the besiege tactics, well, has there been crimes committed? I believe with things like the water that happened for a few days and some of the telecommunications, we could look at that. And I think it is important for the countries to look at that and hold other countries, even allied countries and ourselves, to a higher standard. And I think that does need looking into and seeing what the civilian casualties actually were, as well as more humanitarian aid for the people behind me just living there under this as well. But I think around the world, this idea that Hamas are freedom fighters is just incorrect. And I'm unbiased. I try and be as unbiased as possible, but it is just ridiculous. When I see that, when I see what they've done and I hear what they've done, see GoPro footage of what happened is just brutal. Where does this go from here? Well, I don't know. The north is a far bigger risk. Hamas is a fraction of the power that Hezbollah in the north have. Of course, being an Iranian proxy. And Iran, through Houthi rebels, down in Yemen, all of this could spiral into a larger scale Middle Eastern war. So I do think that there are very, very high chances that I'll be back here in a wider conflict. But this somewhat isolated incident down here in the south of Israel, in Gaza, somewhat isolated, has really had a ripple effect through the Middle East between Jews, the West, Muslim communities. It has created a ripple effect. And where does that go? When do the ripples start coming back? Well, we are unsure, but the north is looking like it is heating up and right on a boiling point, but we are unsure. We know the ground operation behind us is continuing, advancing on critical areas in there too. But one of the things I do fear is look at any history against terrorist organisations. It has a way to pop its head up no matter what you do, no matter what head you seemingly cut off, what you take out, it seemingly pops up. And this is the radicalisation of people, and it will just pop up under a different name. Look at Afghanistan. Years, decades and decades of fighting, whether it's the Russians or the coalition, whatever. And those networks may be under different banners, but they still exist with similar ideologies. And I do fear that this bombing campaign and what has happened is just radicalising a whole new generation, not only within Gaza, but around the world, to reinforce these ideas about what the West and what countries may do there. So it does reinforce, and I've spoken many a time, that if we were young men born in Afghanistan, saw the coalition come in from 15,000 miles away and putting in that the good odds of that we would have joined the Taliban as well. You do need to sometimes really try and see things from a different perspective there. So I do fear that there could be a radicalisation of a whole new generation as well, which, how do we minimise that while still having some enforcement of security and control of terrorist organisations in your region? Well, that is very difficult, and that is this balancing act calculation that these high-ranking officers and officials need to make. And I'm glad I'm not making those decisions. But what we've witnessed here over the last month is brutal, is savage, will stick with me for a very, very long time. So I'd like to thank you guys for all your support while I'm here. I am a solo journalist. I don't sell any of my stuff. I host all of this so I can say what I want, do what I want. But of course, that means I have no actual financial backing other than you guys, and YouTube hates this Israel-Gaza. Just their algorithm hates it, so everything's basically been demonetized. So you guys are the ones who have actually covered all the costs of this trip, and you've actually covered the costs, and I think now that we're in to profit. It is never my intention to profit off war, but that is part, I guess, of the job. But thank you guys for giving me this experience, letting me come here and see this, and I'm sure that I'll be back here within my career, maybe soon, maybe in weeks, maybe in months, but I am sure that I'll be back in this region very soon. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.